Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we have our first leader from the 7th set of the One Piece card game. We have Jewelry Bonney, and she's pretty obnoxious, she's also pretty unique, and I think she's going to be a pretty big meta contender for this next set. A couple of things though before we get started. First, if you guys enjoy these videos, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to be making a lot more OP07 content in the next couple of weeks, and I don't want you guys to miss it. I also want to say that this video has just kind of a guide for the deck in general and some card choices, 2 example builds, and then at the end we're going to go over some gameplay from my most recent live stream. If you guys want to see the entirety of the live stream, it's for YouTube members as well as Twitch subscribers, and I do also want to say people who support me with that, it goes a long way, and I really do appreciate that as well. So make sure to check those out if you guys can, and let's just jump on into this video. So we got the Bonney leader, and this is kind of our second mono green supernova leader in general. First one we got was from the first set of starter decks, the Eustace Captain Kidd, which was pretty meta for quite a bit. I think for the first 2 sets and even a little bit into set 3, especially when it started kind of being like the film leader before Uta became a leader. It was pretty strong, especially since it did have like 2 attacks on the leader. It was great for kind of closing out games in a lot of ways. So Bonney is pretty different though, I'd say playstyle compared to Kidd. It is also supernova, and it has this when an opponent attacks once returned for 1 Dawn, you get to rest up one of your opponent's leaders or characters. So this is a pretty obnoxious ability, being able to, whenever if they have 2 cards out that are active, either their leader and a character card, you're going to be able to use 1 Dawn to get out of 1 attack, which is pretty insane when you really think about it. So it's pretty great, especially when you're a 5 life leader. It just means that Bonney is naturally a really defensive leader, and it's kind of tricky to kind of go for game, especially if you have a lot of blockers or even like the 8-drop Kidd set up. So that's kind of important. I also do want to mention that we do get a good amount of cards that are supernova leader specific, so I think that's important. That also means that Law and Luffy, 2 additional supernova leaders that are at least the green ones that get the support for it. From the first set, they do have some potential to use some of these cards as well, but we're going to, again, just kind of focus on Bonney for this video in general. So kind of like the newer cards for this one, we're going to start off with Cavendish, which technically is an EBO1 card, but I do want to mention it because it works really well with this leader. 1 player, 1 attacking. If your leader is a supernova type, you have no other Cavendish on the field, you get to gain 2 Dawn active. These have to be Dawn that are rested, so you can't like attach 2 Dawn to your leader attack and then attack with Cavendish and refresh them. You pretty much have to like play something and then use its effect, but 2 Dawn back is really great in a lot of scenarios. Does mean like you can get some more flexibility with like your 8-drop Kidd, or making sure that you have a Dawn open at the end of your turn for your leader effect. It's very flexible. It's one of the better cards for it. 5 is a little bit expensive for it sometimes, but I think it works very well for the deck, and it's in a good spot. So there's there. Then we have Bonney, the 5 cost. This one's kind of like, I think it's people either love it or hate it. It's strong in some scenarios, but it's probably like Cavendish is like good for its cost. I think this Bonney is like a little bit expensive for it. It's another 5-drop 6k on play. Up to one of your opponent's rested characters are Dawn do not become active during their next refresh phase. Unfortunately, it's not leader. If you could hit the leader with this too, I think it'd be strong, but probably too strong kind of scenario. So it's fine. It does mean that if you're playing against a deck that needs to go to 10 Dawn, being able to rest one of their Dawns so they can't play like their 10-drop Big Bomb or something like that, that is pretty impactful for some of those matchups. So it's not too much overhead to play the card. It's only a 1k counter, and I think you'll probably play it at like 1 or 2 copies, but I don't think it's worth a play set like Cavendish, but it's remarkable to mention, and another supernova as well. And we also have Basil Hawkins. This one is pretty good in a lot of ways. I didn't immediately like it when I read it, but the more I saw it, I think it's good. It's if your leader has supernova in its type, it gets blocker, so it's a 6-drop 7k with blocker, so that's pretty good. And then once per turn, if this character would to be removed from play by one of your opponent's effects, you may instead rest one of your opponent's characters. So what this seems really strong. In practice, it's a little bit less strong. Generally, what this means is that if they use a character effect to remove this, you get protection, right? Because the idea is that even if they have like these 1-drops, 2-drops, or whatever, if you want to be able to get around this protection, you just attack with all your weenies, even if they don't do damage, and then you use your removal card, right? But if you use something like a Gecko Moria to play an 8-drop, to play Hina, to do your thing, Basil Hawkins would just be able to rest the Gecko Moria that you played, or something else in that vein. So it's good against, I think, specifically black, because they usually use character-based cards to get removal, which means you can just rest the card they used off their, the character that you're trying to remove with it, which is good. So I think that's solid from that spot. So it's an interesting card. It doesn't have counter, so it's a little bit stuck in hand sometimes, but I think it's good for the deck in general too. All right, other supernovas. So these are ones that we get from EB01 and OP07 as well, but I think they're just good in general and almost, I would say, staples for the deck. We have Scratchman Apu, which is another 2K counter. It's a 1-drop. On play, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with that cost 2 or less. This kind of comes up every once in a while as well. It doesn't come up. You don't have any cost reduction, Bonney, but I think it's a good enough card to run. It's better if you have to choose between this one and the old Scratchman Apu. I think this one is just better generically, and there's some times when they have like a 1-drop or 2-cost blocker that you can get the rest with, which is pretty nice. So I think it's worth mentioning. And again, it's just a 2K that you're able to find off Bonney, the 1-drop, so you're good there. We also have Bart, which is a 3-drop blocker, so you can play this off your 8-drop Useless Kid. And your turn, once per turn, if a character is rested from your own effects, draw 1, then trash 1 card from your hand. I wish it wasn't your turn. If you could play this with Bonney and then you use your Bonney effect to, rest one of their things and then draw a card, that would be, draw a card, discard a card, that I think be busted. So I get it, but man, it's so close from being like super duper good. So I think this is fine. It's just like a good supernova that you're able to find and use off the 8-drop kid. Sometimes you get like a draw cycle. It's either you rest your own characters or your opponent's characters, so there are some scenarios from that too. But it's not super good. It's just fine for what it is. And we also have Urouge. This is like a great, if you're going second, this is probably your best turn to play. It's a 4-drop 5K blocker, and also end of your turn set up to one of your Dawn as active, which is really good because you're able to use that to have 1 Dawn open for your Bonney effect. And then obviously if this survives into the later game, you're able to get kind of like greedy plays and tap out because you're going to have that 1 Dawn open for the Urouge as well. So having like a mini like green purple Dofi leader effect on a 4-drop 5K blocker is good, especially when we do have like 1 Dawn that we can use on our opponent's turn pretty much every turn, which is really good. So I think he's pretty great for that. And then kind of like the top end for what it looks like in this meta. These are kind of the cards that I've been looking at mostly. I think 8-drop Kid makes the most sense. It's the easy one to kind of direct into, oh yeah, we have a big, Supernova green leader, right? We've seen this before. We know that 8-drop Kid does pretty well in it, especially since we are losing Sakazuki. Some decks just have a hard time answering this card in general, or even if they do answer it, it just means they have to spend a lot of resources, which means you usually get your value out of it anyways. So this card is also really good because like with the leader, if you're able to play off a blocker from it, being able to, they attack with their big body, you block with your blocker, and then you use your leader effect to rest the next big thing they'd attack with. It's pretty difficult to get rid of this guy in some scenarios, so I think it works really good with Bonney. We also have Zoro as well, which is just a really good ender for the game, especially against decks like the mirror match. Like I think this is a mirror match breaker in a lot of ways. Being able to attack 3 times for 3 Dawn as a 9K is great, and then every additional Dawn. So for 5 Dawn, you can go 3 11Ks, which is very good for ending a lot of games in a lot of ways. So sometimes it's difficult to have them stay out, or sometimes it's hard to get into a position where you have enough time to establish him with 9 Dawn. But being able to play him for 9 and then have 1 Dawn open as long as you're at 10 Dawn at the start of your turn is pretty good. So I don't know. I don't super love this card. Sometimes it wins me games though, so it's fine. But yeah, sometimes I feel like it's a little bit slow. But again, if your opponent doesn't answer this card, you win the game with it. So I get it. It's just sometimes like I'm not in a position where I can spend 9 Dawn to play a card like this. So and then last we have Hody Jones. This card actually is kind of like I didn't think it was going to be so good in this deck. Like it's obviously been very strong in the past, but man, it's probably one of my favorite cards in this deck right now. The fact that it's a 7-drop rush card, the fact that we are a 5-life leader, so we don't really care. Like the fact that it's technically is like draw one, play a rush card, rest things is really good. It's also really good in the mirror match because you can rest the Dawn that they had open to use their leader effect and like get rid of blockers. So this card I think is good in a lot of ways, especially when you already have an 8-drop kit established. It just means that you can be a little bit more aggressive with your Dawn usage because like your defense is a little bit better because you have your 8-drop kit out. So he's great. He's good in a lot of spots, and I've been really enjoying just being able to drop him, even like on 7. And then if my opponent doesn't have a way to get rid of it, it just kind of gets more pressure every turn afterwards. So it's been very good. And kind of last thing I want to mention before we go to the deck list is the Don Quixote Pirates. We do have a build for these guys as well, but they just have a lot of good synergies with the deck as in general. The fact that Bonney can kind of be like a Dofi leader as well, like a mono green version of it. It's good in a lot of ways. Most of the Don Quixote stuff doesn't care about the leader either. Like the 2-drop blocker, I think you have to run no matter what. It's fantastic with your 8-drop kid. Just means that they're going to have to spend a lot of resources to get rid of both this blocker and the kid. And even if they rest this blocker and then try to go into the 8-drop kid, you still get to use this protection effect because it doesn't matter how it's going to be KO'd. You just get the protection for it. We also have 8-drop Rosinante, which has been waiting for 5-drop green cards to be relevant to play off this effect, which we did get 2 new ones with Cavendish and Bonney. I don't know if they're good enough to warrant playing the Rosinante, but it's there, so go nuts, go test it out, and let me know how it is. He's just fine, right? He has protection too. Active characters cost of 5 can't be KO'd, so I think that's fine, but no, he's just fine. He's just fine for what it is. It's just so rough that it's so specific for 5 costs when there's not a lot of cards in that card pool, but I digress. And then obviously 10-drop Dofi. This card's really good because we're already resting things already. So especially because we can rest our opponent's leader to make it so we can use our 10-drop effect. So I think the deck is he's very good. Sometimes 10 Dawn is expensive, but if we have either a Cavendish out or an Uruj or some way to get an extra Dawn at the end of our turn to use our leader effect, we're eating really, really good. Especially if we already have like Captain Kid out in Cavendish, we're able to like attack, play 10-drop Dofi, attack with Cavendish, get 2 Dawn open, put 1 underneath our 8-drop kid, and then we have 1 left in case we need it for our leader effect, which I would doubt at that point. So I think Dofi's like a little bit overkill, but I think a lot of people are going to be testing it as well. And there's some good scenarios where he's just a 10-drop 10k that does a lot of damage too. So anyways, those are kind of like the main cards we want to talk about, and let's go to our example deck lists. All right, so we got 2 example deck lists for you guys. I'd say this is like the standard one. It's also the build that we're going to be seeing in the example games in a minute. And then we also have more of the Don Quixote do Flamingo package. I didn't like this one as much between the 2, but I did want to kind of have an example deck for this. I also want to say in general a couple of things where I think Bonney is actually pretty open-ended when it comes to a leader and its strengths. So I think we're going to see a lot of different builds from a lot of different people. I think that this is a deck that won't have a solid 50 like we're kind of used to in a lot of OP06 meta, where there will be a lot of room for tech options or cards you think are good. It's just like a generically really strong green leader, which we really haven't had since Eustace Kid. So being able to kind of re-examine a lot of these cards in the context that they're just a good leader to kind of support them, I think is good for Bonney in general. So the kind of, I'd say, tech choices for this one, I did put both Ryuma and X-Drake in this deck. X-Drake is a supernova, so it can be found off the Bonney, which is quite nice. And then Ryuma is just a 4-cost version of it, but it's still good in its own way. Generally, I just found like most builds weren't running either of these, and there's just some spots where we just need some more removal, especially against something like Red Purple Law or against Gecko Moria. I think Ryuma or X-Drake on curve can get a lot of value for those matchups, especially since they're 6k bodies. It means that your opponent usually has to put a little bit of extra effort to get rid of these, and that's important for our tempo too. So I like them. If you don't like them, take them out, but I did want to at least explain my reasoning for adding them in the first place. Other than that, I think the decks are pretty solid. And then this, I think like this one is a really good starter build for someone who's just trying to establish what the leader looks like and what it looks like for the meta, and then they can make their own individual choices. That's generally what I like in card games, where you can give a standard build to someone and they can make their own personal tech choices from their own gameplay and what they want to kind of beat. And I think Bonney is really good for that compared to what we've been seeing again in the last meta. So this is again my example build, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do in the next couple weeks yourselves. And then this is the Dofi one. I think some kind of minor things I do want to mention for this one. I have seen people talk about Dellinger. It's just kind of like a 3-cost version of the Uruj. Obviously, it doesn't have blocker, but being able to use it for like an Aandroidd every turn at the end of turn is good because we do have a good reason and good thing to use off of it. So you know, I think like this deck generically wants to go second in a lot of ways, but you do have some really good, you know, 3 Dawn or odd Dawn plays, which includes like being able to play Cavendish immediately, right? Like let's say we played Dellinger, we had one open, and then if they Dellinger survives, which again is a little bit trickier for this meta without Sakazuki to get rid of 3 costs on curve, it's more expensive, I would say, and with Great Eruption gone as well for Moria. So being able to say, you know what, I'm going to instead, you know, 3 I'll play Dellinger, 5 play Cavendish, which means I have 2 Dawn open to go 7k with leader, end of turn, untap 1, I can still use my leader effect. There's some really good stuff you can do with these decks going odd too. So again, I don't want to think like Bonney you have to go second with. I think you can definitely build to go first in a lot of ways. And again, it's just a really generic leader that a lot of people are going to make themselves. So, you know, make it their own builds, which I think is really cool. So anyways, those are the kind of 2 example builds I want to show you guys real quick. And let's go to the example match. All right, so we got 2 example matches from the live stream that I did earlier this week. And if you guys want to see the full ones, they're for YouTube members and Twitch subscribers, linked in the description. For our first game, we're going to be playing against the Black Yellow Luffy, which I think is going to be a better matchup for Bonney in general. But we do have like the 8-drop Kid, which is a bit of a rough spot for the Luffy, especially since we also get some really good interaction with our leader effect as well. So they're playing their 1-drop. We're going to actually probably play this one a little bit slower because we don't want them to kind of get their big plays too quickly. They're going to play the Kuzan, which is a little bit terrifying, but we're just going to be playing the Cavendish out. We're also going to just attack into the 1-drop and then pass it right back. So we do have 1 Dawn open, which means that if they attack with either their leader or their Kuzan, we do get to rest the other one, which is quite strong. And we're going to see if they have any removal. They do not have the first 5-drop Luffy, so that we do have the other one. And I decided just to go with the Hody on curve, which I think is just going to be great for getting that additional value. We're going to attack with the Cavendish just to have an additional Dawn open, and then we're going to attack with the Hody 8-8, 9-8, so they're going to use a 2k and get out of it. Again, we do have 1 Dawn open, so if they do want to attack with the Luffy or their leader, we are going to be able to get out of it for 1, or get out of the other one, essentially, so pretty good there. They went down to 1 life due to the 5-drop Luffy's effect as well. And right now they're at 8 Dawn, so they're kind of seeing what they want to do with it. Again, it's kind of like a scary spot with, you know, if you are at 1 life, you're going to have a hard time like getting like with the protection, because I'm going to probably start swinging with the cards I have on board. But it looks like they're going to go into their 1-drop again with their Flampe, go to 0 life, and then they're going to be able to use their leader effect. The other thing is that they don't have any 5-drops in their trash right now, which is kind of tricky, which just means that they have to like lose additional value from hand from being able to use the effect. But yeah, 2 Dawn underneath leader, not too surprising there. And yeah, see, no 5 costs in there too. So just they can still use it from hand, but they get out of it. We're going to use our card action. We're going to rest their leader right there. And then I'm thinking about getting out of it. I think it's probably worth it at the end. So it's 9-6. We're just going to use 2 2Ks, which we have a couple of Scratch Mana Poos in hand, so it should be pretty easy to get out of it. It just means that they're probably going to be trying to play Sabo. Yeah, there's a discard of Sabo from their leader effect. We're going to put a Luffy and a Sabo there. There's a 2-drop Luffy, and there's the 2-drop Sabo. So I think they did it in that order, so we wouldn't be able to rest their Sabo with their leader effect, which is, again, pretty tricky. It just means that you have a hard time being like the full power Luffy at leader attack for a couple reasons. So I think the big thing is, yeah, we're going to play another Hody, which is a little bit, the second one's a little bit tricky, but I think the fact that we're going to be able to bully these 8-drops is worth it in a lot of ways. I was thinking about attacking the leader as well, but I think just attacking to the 5 cost is just better. It just means like more resources out of their hand either way, or just means that we don't like lose immediately next turn, so I think that's strong. All right, and yeah, it looks like they're going to be playing 2... Yeah, if they have 8-drop Moria right now, they're going to be in a good spot to be able to at least recycle and do like another like 9k Luffy as it is. And they have to attack with their leader first. Otherwise, if they attack with their leader, we get the rest of their Sabo, which is going to be pretty good. So, yeah, it doesn't super matter. We're just going to 2k out, keep this around with our third copy of Scratch Mana Poo. And we'll have to see if they have the Moria, which, again, I'm pretty sure they do have. Yeah, and I wanted to keep it like that just in case they played like 5 drops Ace. It just makes it a little bit trickier. But yeah, they're able to play the double Sabos, which is pretty good. But I think we do have some ways to kind of get around that. So yeah, we're going to start off with a 9k at their leader. We're going to start with and then play another card, which is the Uruj, which we're going to get 2 Dawn back with their Cavendish, so another 9k body there. We're going to go... Yeah, we're 1 Dawn short from being able to do 2 more 9k attacks. So we're just going to go for the big number. They're going to get the block there. Uruj is going to get a Dawn back. We could have maybe done like some slightly better numbers instead of just kind of finishing off with a big attack with that last Hody. But I think we're in a good spot. Having a blocker is great. Being able to use our leader effect to rest their Sabo blocker inherently, I think is very good too. So they're in a bit of a tough spot. And we didn't find our 8-drop kid so far in this game, but even without it, I think we're in a good spot. And I honestly like all of our top end Hody, also 8-drop kid as well as Zoro. I think all of them are very good cards for countering this deck in general if they're able to be established, and that's good for the deck too. So they're going 6k into there. We're going to use a card action for the Sabo, which I think is probably worth it. I was thinking about leader as well, but I think Sabo is probably just the better card. This means they have to kind of try to play it again. But they're going to put 2 Dawn underneath their leader. All right, they're going to play Luffy, the new one from the set, which is actually pretty impactful, as well as, yeah, the 2-drop for each. So we do have the 2-drop Luffy, which will get rid of our blocker, and then the Sabo, which will refresh their hand. They've got a big leader attack going in. Should probably be at one of these Hodys, but it's just going to go to our face. And it should have gone to one of these Hodys because then we just have perfect math to end the game. So we're going to go, 3? Yeah, we're going to go 11 there. 11 to 9. So either they go to 0 cards in hand or we get their blocker. All right, they go to 0 cards in hand, which means this 9k is going to be blocked. And then we just attack for Bonney for game. So that's that first game. And the second game was like right afterwards. So I wanted to just kind of do a bonus game, especially because it was Perona, which is a deck that I've been really enjoying as well. And it's the Wano build. So I kind of want to just kind of go over this match and see how it goes. And they're going to start off with their 1-drop Otama, which unfortunately didn't find any Wano cards, which is pretty rough for that deck in general. But we're not going to do anything. We're just going to pass this first turn. We actually are going to block the Otama there, just because like we do want them to have like no cards on board, so they can't use the Samurai. They're going to use their 1-drop Momo. They're actually going to draw the 1-drop Otama, and then they're going to be able to do it again and find that you can be my Samurai. So we do want to kind of clear their board. And I was thinking about if we want to play the Uruj, but I think even though it's just getting rid of a 1-drop, I think the Ryuma on curve is just better. The only way they can get interaction with this if they have their own copy of it as well. So that looks like it's going to be the case. But that just means that they're going to be able to do that with our blockers anyways. So I think it was fine just for like the tempo play as is. And just kind of forcing them to have the card because they did not... they didn't add it to hand. It wasn't common knowledge that was in hand yet either. So we're gonna play the Cavendish. We're gonna attack that 7 into there, and they can use 2k to get out of it, which it wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, there it is. All right, and I think we're just gonna pass from there. We're gonna have 1 Dawn open, so we can again like this. The leader effect is fantastic when they only have 2 cards that can attack every turn, because you get out of like the other attack for free, which is really nice. So they're going to use a cost -1 from the leader effect. We're going to be a 4-cost Cavendish. We're going to go 7 there. We're going to take the damage and rest their leader from being able to attack. and then Sabo. So they couldn't interact with this either way, it looks like. So because we are a 5 cost, they can't rest a 4 cost kind of thing. They're going to get rid of an Ice Age and a Hiyori. I think Ice Age probably should have been kept in general, but we're going to play our blocker there. We're going to go 6 in there, get 2 Dawn additionally back. Again, we're a 5 cost, so the Ryuma doesn't get out of it. And then we're going to go a big 8 into it. And Perona is also a leader that generally gets rid of cards by playing cards. So we do have the fact that this Basil Hawkins is going to be kind of tricky to get rid of, because if they play like a Gecko Moria or like a Ryuma with cost reduction to get rid of this, we can just rest the card they just played, which is really good. And the fact that they like to have their cards in active mode for, the cards like the Samurai and stuff, I think being able to kind of chip them away and kind of prevent them from getting the cards from their life and kind of starve them of resources has been pretty good. So they're attacking with their Sabo, knowing that we're going to just rest them anyways. We're going to block on 1k. Just get the value of the Hawkins as we can. And then they're going to play X-Drake with the cost reduction to get rid of the Cavendish, which is kind of rough that that card got removed, but I think that's fine. And then if they... the Momo missed 2, so being able to miss 2 off Wano is pretty stinky, but they did get another copy of Samurai, which was able to get them 2 draws off the Otama and the other one, so I think that's good. We're actually going to play 2 copies of Rouge, which is a little bit trickier for them to, rest both copies of it, and we're going to pass. If they have like a copy of 8 cost Sabo, though, we're feeling pretty bad. They're going to be able to get rid of both from the effect of that. But so far they're sticking around. And I think like the only thing like I don't like about the 7 cost Hody is that there are situations like this one where we're not really ahead on life, our tempo, so we can never play it. We can only really play the card when we're ahead, or we're going to try to go for game. So we rest their leader. They're going to play Isho, which gets rid of Hody, so I guess we don't have to worry about that. But Isho is a pretty obnoxious card against us, and I think is a good counter for what this deck wants to do in general. But we're going to start trying to chip away. We're going to go 5k into their leader. They're going to take probably their first hit of damage from this game. And probably could have attacked with Rouge, but we're going to play the 8-drop and the Rosie and pass from there. So we're at a little bit too much life. I think sometimes like you really want to play Kid when we're down to like 1 or 0 life. Being 2 is like a little bit high because like it's another card that we could have used to defend our 8-drop instead, which again is like why it synergizes with Hody so much, because if we have the 8-drop established, we can play Hody and then we get the life, so we get more cards and we get some more interaction. But they're going to use the Izo to rest the Dofi. And I think this turn honestly was probably the turning point for us. I think they made a couple mistakes in a couple ways. So first, Rosinante still gets the block, even if it's rested, essentially. And that's pretty impactful for this. They use the Tonkutsa to rest us, and then not recognizing that Otama can't hit into the 1-drop just because of how 8-drop Dofi works. So a little bit unfortunate there. I think the deck could have been a little bit better for them. But they did get the removal of our Rouge, but I think the Rosie is technically the card they really want to get out of. So this is kind of like a tough spot. I think that we're, it's kind of tricky, especially with them having Isho on board. I don't feel super comfortable with playing the 9-drop, but I think it's something we have to do. It's also kind of weird with them removing the Rouge there. Also, the Rosie getting bopped by Ice Age feels a little bit bad. But I think we kind of just have to go for it at this point. So we play 9-drop Zoro. If they have a way to get rid of it, we just lose. And then if they don't, we're in a really good spot. I think we go for game from there. So we'll see what they do. That Ice Age was pretty killer. That was pretty rough for that Rosie. I'd feel a lot more confident for Rosie, but we see their first play is a turn 1 Don Momo. So searching, they get an Izo 2k. They go 8k into our body, which feels a little bit better at this point. Yeah, and you see them thinking at this point. They're just going... right now they're a 9k body with the Isho. I think Isho is coming back for OP07. If you're not used to that card, it's gonna surprise a lot of people. We're gonna 2K out of that one. And with one card in hand, they can attack with their Isho. But the fact they didn't have any removal is fantastic. If they had like an Ice Age, I think we lose. Like Ice Age Ryuma paired with the Isho, I think just loses us the game too. So luckily they did not have that. I think otherwise they could have been in a really good spot to take this game. Yeah, they're putting Dawn on the Isho. They're going to be able to attack into the Kid, but I think the Zoro is just going to be able to win from us no matter what. So they'll go, what, 10K? Yeah, they're just going to concede, actually. So totally get it. I think that, yeah, from where they're at, not being able to set up a block or anything, we just get there as well. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Bonney, I think, is going to be pretty present in this meta in general. But again, it's going to be a pretty open deck compared to what we're used to in OP06, where there's a lot of room for techs and personal choices too. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and catch you all next time.